it was like a bad weed experience, I would say. So I smoked a little bit and I had a really bad panic attack, and it felt like everything was like very claustrophobic, and I've never had that really bad intense panic attack before. The next morning I woke up and I had to go to work and I still felt like high and out of body, and it was just like so uncomfortable, like really intense, like my heart was racing really fast, and I was just like, I've never felt this way before, and I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. I was like, maybe this is just I'm still high. That's what I kept saying. Maybe I'm just still high.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Mackenzie Claremont from New Hampshire in the United States. Mackenzie is 21 years old. She suffered from chronic depersonalization and derealization for 5 months, but is now thankfully fully recovered, and she's with us today to tell us about her experience with and recovery from depersonalization disorder. Mackenzie, you're very welcome to the channel. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mackenzie?
I work at a car dealership. I drive cars around, and I love just like being with friends, going outside, doing a bunch of like fun stuff. That's my favorite. Just being with people that I love and going snowboarding. That's kind of my favorite thing. Keeping myself busy is what I like to do.
Great. So are you in university or college at the moment, or are you working? What do you do?
I work at a Mini Cooper dealership, so I just like drive around cars, help in sales. That's kind of what I do.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a nice job.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mackenzie, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
So it happened like last summer around July. I'd say like July 15th around there. I can remember the exact date because it's like changed my life for like five months. So me and my boyfriend have like a little camp during the summer that we go to and just like hang out with each other. And it was like a bad weed experience, I would say. So I smoked a little bit and I had a really bad panic attack, and it felt like everything was like very claustrophobic, and I've never had that really bad intense panic attack before. So it was very scary, and I remember calling my mom and I was like freaking out. I was like, I've never felt this way before. And so I finally like calmed down a little bit, but I still felt like that weird like spacey feeling. Like that's the best way that I could describe it at the beginning. So I just like felt like really like out of place, like out of body, and I've never experienced that before. So I was panicked, and I was with my boyfriend. He's like, "You're gonna be okay. Like it'll go away. Like just a bad experience." So I went to bed, and everything was fine. I still felt a little bit weird, but the next morning I woke up and I had to go to work, and I still felt like high and out of body, and it was just like so uncomfortable, like really intense. Like my heart was racing really fast, and I was just like, I've never felt this way before, and I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. And it was just like something I never experienced before, so I didn't really know. I was like, maybe this is just I'm still high. That's what I kept saying. Maybe I'm just still high. And it just kept getting worse after that, and followed panic attacks. And I say like the DP like started like not as intense as it got in like the 5 months that I had it. Like it was definitely less severe when I first got it, but I think I just kept worrying about that feeling, and it just progressively got worse from there. So that's how it started.
It's a very common experience for weed to be the trigger. I mean, it can happen with all drugs technically, but because weed can be so scary, especially when it's kind of stronger than you expected.
Yeah, I just smoked like a little bit, and it was too much for me. So
yeah. I had pretty much the same experience. I had
yeah,
a really bad weed experience when I was in Amsterdam with some friends, and smoked what I thought was not going to be very strong, and turned out to be extremely strong.
yeah,
And then I had a panic attack. I later realized it was a panic attack, and then the GP kicked in a couple of
yeah.
weeks after that. Um, you kept working, Mackenzie, where you kind of, and did you kind of keep, you kept kind of socializing and things, and but the feelings kind of kept getting more intense over time. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so like when it first happened, I had work the day after and I was like just felt like groggy and like I said, like that weird feeling. So I kept like just trying to like push through it. Like I just kept telling myself this is gonna go away. Like, but I kept socializing with everyone that I worked with, but I noticed progressively like each week after that, I would slowly like stop talking to people that I worked with. Like it was really hard to like hold a conversation with people and like look people in their eyes because it just felt like not real. And that's what gave me anxiety is like trying to talk to like customers and people that I work with. It was so hard to like keep a conversation because in the back of my mind, I was like, this just doesn't feel real. I don't feel real. And it's like trying to talk to someone. It's like you hear your voice from like outside of yourself. That's what it felt like. Like I'm listening to my voice. Like it doesn't sound like my own voice. So it's like so hard to like do my job where I talk to like 50 people a day. And it's like trying to hold conversations with people was like the hardest part when it came to my job. And that's like the thing that I have to do at work is speak with people. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I had something very similar as well, where, I mean, it's very, very common, but I remember trying to like speak to people, trying to chat to friends of mine. And all I could think about was like focusing on my own voice. And I felt like my voice sounded weird. And then
yeah,
I'd start thinking about like how are my words coming out of my mouth and going into that person's brain, and it's like,
yeah,
and then and just kind of focusing on strange things like that, and then you kind of forget what the conversation is actually about and lose your train of
yeah,
thought, and then you think you're losing your memory, and it just kind of turns into this
yep,
big snowball thing of
yeah.
panicking. Yeah. And I know you've listed a couple of them already, Mackenzie, but can you tell us more about some of the symptoms that you were experiencing? So one of them would have been kind of trouble speaking to people and concentrating in conversations, but what other symptoms did you experience in that time?
Um, the weirdest thing, oh, sorry. The weirdest thing that I would say, like, I don't know if it was like a general experience, like if you experienced it, but when I would be driving, like listening to like music, I love Tame Impala. Like that's my favorite artist. Like I love them, but even listening to that, I would like the lyrics just are like I just like just the person like it was just being in that state and like listening to the lyrics, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't listen to this. Like it'd send me into a panic and it'd make me feel like so weird. I don't know if that happened to you, but like listening to like certain music made me feel like so uncomfortable. And I love Tame Impala now. Like thankfully I can listen to them now because that was my favorite music. Summer music, that's my favorite music. But listening to like music, any like I don't know, it's just like so weird. Like I've never had that feeling. So like that was like the main symptom and just like driving was weird. Like that was a big trigger for me because I would just like zone out the whole time and forget how I got to where I was driving. It was just like driving the music part like that freaked me out. So I don't know if you experienced that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Also, Tim Impala, brilliant. They're
Yeah.
great. Yeah, great band. Oh yeah, I had that absolutely as well. Like I mean, like I found it hard to listen to all music, and like or
Yeah.
any films and stuff as well. But there was a couple of them. Like I mean, there's a couple of bands like I'd be into, like kind of like heavier electronic music and stuff, and I couldn't listen to it at all. It would just
Yeah.
immediately freak me out, like. Yeah, yeah, and that made me worry that I couldn't like ever listen to music again and enjoy it, or
Yeah.
watch a film again. But yeah, no, certainly I would have had that. And also at the time I was playing music for a living, so that really made me kind of wonder if I'd be able to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And was there anything else, Mackenzie, in terms of like the feeling of like disconnection that people often have with DP, or people can often have like kind of visual symptoms where they feel like things aren't kind of aren't 3D, or those kind of things. Do
Yeah.
you have any other symptoms like that?
Yeah, and the main thing was like I went through like a move this like that whole summer we moved houses. So
Mm.
being with my family and stuff and like trying to like do that while like packing my like stuff up and like just like doing normal tasks was like very hard, and being around family in that like period like just didn't like, I felt like disconnected from them, which is like the saddest part for me because I missed out. I feel like I missed out on a lot. Like I was still there. I still was the same person, but obviously when you're going through this, you feel like a completely changed person, and that everything's all different and people that you love look different to you. So like that was another scary thing, was like my mom trying to talk to her, like I said, like just like talking to the person I love the most, my mom, like it was still like so hard, like trying to like hold those normal conversations and like moving. I just felt like super weird doing that. Like just the whole, I don't know, this whole summer, that whole summer was like already crazy, but the depersonalization on top of that made it like terrifying.
I remember when it happened to me, and I was like trying to speak to like my mom and dad about it, and but I found it very difficult to like to describe what was happening. Um,
Yeah.
and then I would worry that like the way I was describing it kind of it sounded kind of crazy, because I would say, well,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not here. I feel like I'm disconnected from the world, or I feel like I'm losing my memory, things like that, or my vision
Yeah.
was altered or whatever. But yeah, but I could tell like my dad were extremely worried about me. And
Yeah. Same.
they weren't really sure what to do. And especially in that first period with it as well, when I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know that there was a word to describe what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it? How long did it take you actually, Mackenzie, to find the word depersonalization? I mean, or I presume you hadn't heard it before, but maybe you had. But like, did you come across it on Google, or was it on forums, or how did you find it?
So going back to like talking to my mom, like I remember like sitting in the car with her and I was like trying to describe, like I just feel like empty inside, like disconnected. And of course she's like, you're probably like, maybe you're depressed. I was like, no, I'm not. I don't feel like depressed because I didn't ever have this like feeling, like I was like, this can't be like. So I went on like, I like was looking up a bunch of stuff, obviously, or like trying to find an answer for whatever this is. And I just remember like looking up all these symptoms, and obviously like scary stuff pops up, like, oh, you're going through like psychosis or beginning stages of schizophrenia. And that scared me so much because like the main thing that I like, I don't know, that was just like the scariest things. So I was just on TikTok one day, and this girl that was like around my age, she had like a bad experience with weed as well, and she described her like symptoms, and she said that I found out that it's depersonalization. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, so then I went on YouTube and I came across your channel, and I remember just like watching all your videos at like the lowest, like most frightening points of my life. Like these like five, like beginning of like August is when I found out what it was. So I remember like finding your videos after that and just watching them religiously every night before bed, trying to like calm me down and make me feel like I'm not going crazy, because that's what I felt like in that moment. So your videos definitely helped. And then I finally connected all the dots and really resonated with what you were saying. So that's when I found out, is when on TikTok, and then I found your videos, and then that's when I fully was like, okay, this is what I have. So that's how I found out.
Good, good. That's great. That's great to hear. And when you found that out, Mackenzie, did you have a chat with your mom about it? Were you seeing any kind of doctors or therapists about it, or how did you speak to people about it?
So after that, like I kept going on, and I didn't really like tell my mom. I kind of just was like, okay, this is what I have. But then it got to a point where it got progressively just really, really bad. And I was upstairs at work. Like I do a bunch of stuff at work. And I was just upstairs, like filing paperwork. And I was just like, massive panic attack. And so I called my mom, and I was like, I'm having all these like scary thoughts, like racing thoughts. And I was like, I said to her, I just don't feel comfortable. I feel like unsafe at work, which I've never felt in my whole entire life. Like I love going to work. So I was like, what is going on? So she was like, maybe we should talk to someone. She knows one of her friends was is a therapist. So I got referred to her and I started talking to her, and thankfully she knew what it was, and that was really helpful. It's like I got lucky, like finding someone that thankfully knew what this was and that it was a symptom of anxiety. So she really helped me and made me not feel like crazy and try to like say like, oh, I don't know, not it was just I'm glad that I got a therapist that understood what it was, because I've watched your videos, like other interviews, like, and some people are like they didn't know what depersonalization was. So I'm glad that I found someone that does, and she really helped with my recovery. And I recommend, like, if you can, to get a therapist, because if you find the right one, they can really also help with that recovery and coping with it. And that's pretty much.
That's great to hear this, that your therapist was able to recognize this and
Yeah.
it kind of helped to explain to you what was happening. Yeah, yeah. It's always a great relief, and it helps to relieve the anxiety that's causing the symptoms when someone can just explain to you, well, this is called depersonalization. It's very common. It's not going to hurt you. It's not permanent. And yeah. So that's great that you found that. And throughout the whole experience, Mackenzie, and I don't know if this isn't too much of a tough question, but what would have been your lowest point in the whole experience? Was it maybe kind of towards the beginning when it first happened, when you didn't know what was happening, or was it later on as the symptoms intensified? Was there a part of it that kind of that was the hardest part of it? What was the hardest part of it?
Yeah. I would say like the lowest point was like towards like month two, like end of month 2, 3, like towards the middle of going through this. I just remember like trying to go to bed and literally like having like the scariest thoughts of like, I don't want to go to sleep because what if I die in my sleep? Like going through this whole thing, the scariest, like the lowest point was like constantly like thinking about death and like being petrified of that. I'm not sure if you had like scary thoughts, like what if I lose control and something bad happens to me? Like that was the scariest and lowest point, was having those scary thoughts. I remember like writing in my journal, I'm like, why am I having these thoughts? Like, and I told my mom, and she's like, you're loved, we love you. Like I said, but I knew I would never, ever, ever do that. But it was still like, that was the lowest and scariest point, was the death thing. I would say like that's when it intensified, and I was having it every single day. And that constant thought was the lowest point for me, was having that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult aspect of the condition, and it's a very difficult aspect of any anxiety-based condition.
Yeah.
Those type of intrusive, unwanted thoughts, because they can be extremely frightening. Yeah, and also the nature of them is that like you are jumping to the worst possible scenarios in your head, like I mean, hurting yourself, hurting other people, this kind of thing. It's like it's something I refer to sometimes as people don't have intrusive thoughts about playing with puppies. You have intrusive thoughts about the worst possible things happening, and that's why they feel so frightening. A lovely rule of thumb I've always found, or that I would have found back when dealing with them myself, was that like I remember reading somewhere that like the reason that those thoughts feel so frightening is because you know that you don't want them.
Yeah.
You know that you would never hurt someone else.
Mm-hmm.
You'd never hurt yourself. And it's because the thoughts are so completely the opposite of what you would want to do, or that's the difference between the difference between the thoughts and the possibility of you acting on it. That's why they feel so frightening. That's why they feel so scary. And the fact that you feel horrified by those thoughts demonstrates to you the chasm between having the thought and never acting on it. Yeah. And it's also worth remembering that like intrusive thoughts are part of every anxiety-based condition, and it's not just DP and DR. I mean, the thoughts of DPDR can be certainly kind of specific to the condition, but it's the same. It's the same with all of the conditions.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely an aspect of my when I had the condition as well. And I remember having it like trying to go to sleep as well. And
Yeah.
when you have those types of thoughts right before you're going to sleep, it just like completely, for me anyway, I don't know about you, Mackenzie, completely disrupted my sleep. Then
Yep.
I had nightmares. They're constantly kind of like big, because of course you have nightmares and dreams about what you think about during the day. So if you're having those types of
Hmm.
intrusive thoughts, you might have nightmares about them. It's very, very frightening when you're going through it initially, but as you start to recover and you understand why these thoughts are happening and why you don't need to be afraid of them, you can start to understand them and let them go.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
spoke to my therapist about it, like just
Mm.
more of like not even like the intrusive thoughts, but like just like I was petrified of like the whole thing of death. Like it scared me, like just leaving my house, going into my car, like scared that something horrible was going to happen to me. Like I'd freaking die in a car. Like that was like, it was scary. And I was like terrified of like leaving at one point. Like, again, tying in with those thoughts is just like leaving my house scared that something was going to happen to me. And just like, I was just scared of death. And I knew, like, I was like, I kept reminding myself in those moments, like, I'm going to get through this. Like, you don't need to be worrying about this. Like, I kept reminding myself, I'm literally like 21 years old. Like, I'm in my prime years. Like, I still have like a lot like I want to do. And I'm not going to let this like ruin these moments of my life. So that's what helped me like kind of get myself out of that. Like, just reminding myself and like staying positive and mindful, I would guess. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I always found interesting as well was the 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 worry about death was a major thing for me as well. So the idea of death like just could completely
yeah.
freak me out, and I would think like, how am I going to die? Am I going
Yep.
to, and what happens after death? Like, and all
Yeah.
these types of thoughts. I used to scare the life into me, like, scare the life out of me. But what I realized as I recovered though was that um when I looked back at the experience, I realized that like I was afraid of everything. Like I was afraid of
Hmm.
absolutely everything. I was afraid of like my dog. I was afraid of my guitar. I was afraid of the house I was living in. I was afraid of the sky. I was afraid of driving.
Yeah.
And I realized that like the fear of death was just another one of those things. It's not. There wasn't anything like special about that thought that made it different from
Hmm.
like my fear of walking outside because the sky felt overwhelming, because it's not about the thought itself, like it's not about the content of the thought, it's about the anxiety that is driving your experience. And as you
Yeah.
recover and the anxiety starts to get back to normal, you realize that okay, like death is a part of life, and like
Yeah.
looking at the sky is a part of going outside, and my dog
Yeah.
isn't scary, like, but you kind of
Yeah.
let go of all of those things, and that filter of anxiety that was causing you to be afraid of each one of these things fades away and stops completely, and you can look at these things from a perfectly non-anxious, non-panicky point of view, even things like
Yeah.
death, and it just kind of your perspective just goes back to the normal, healthy perspective.
Yeah. Because before I never like I was like, I'm a really like, before all of this, like I've always been just like super chill. I try not to worry about like anything, just like normal stresses in life was before. And like the worst thing that I did, I would say when I was starting to recover is like kept worrying about my past self. Like I was like, oh, I have to try to like, I miss my old self. But what my therapist told me was like, and what you tell on your channel is like you're the same person. It's just like something is happening in your mind that's making you think that you're this different person when in reality you're still the same person. So I think that's what really like in the beginning of my recovery is what really like stopped me from fully like getting to the point of being fully recovered is like constantly worrying about the past and like my old like ways and how I was before this, like being in it. And I was like, that's what I wouldn't recommend doing, is not focusing on the past and like your old self, because that's just gonna like keep you in this anxious, it makes you spiral more. That's what I noticed. So I stopped doing that to myself because it's not helpful at all in the recovery process.
And it's a big part of a lot of people's experience with anxiety and DPDR is the worry that like, well, there's this old self and there's this new self, and the new self is anxious and I can't relate to my old self anymore. And how will I be able to get back to my old self if I can't remember what my old self felt like? Now I can see my old self in photographs and stuff and videos and things, but I can't remember that anymore. But it's a big overcomplication of something that's actually very, very simple. And that is to say that like, you're exactly the same. You're exactly the same. You haven't changed at all. It's just that for the time being, there's a small filter of anxiety that's your fight or flight response that's just trying to keep you out of danger, even though you're not actually in danger. You know, a really good example is, you know, if somebody has a panic attack, and the panic attack lasts for like 20 minutes. And in that time, the person will be thinking like, I'm never going to get out of this. I'm never going to get back to normal. I'll never get back to the way I used to be. This is it. I'm finished. I'm going to die. I'm going to go crazy. I'll never see my family and friends again. And they're sure of it. And then 20 minutes later, they get back to doing their shopping. They might be a bit shaken, but the thing is that like, they haven't changed. They're exactly the same person. They were the same person during the panic attack too. It's just that for a brief period of time, their anxiety levels went up higher than they should have been, and it was more difficult to concentrate and focus and just, you know, do your shopping. That's all that's happening. And once it gets back down to normal, once the anxiety gets back down to normal, your ability to think without catastrophic intrusive thoughts just completely gets back to normal as well. But the basic experience of you hasn't changed at all. You are exactly the same. You haven't changed. You haven't forgotten what it's like to be normal. You don't have to remember what it's like to be normal to get back to normal. It's literally just your levels of anxiety going up and down over time. That's all. That's all. Yeah. So Mackenzie, how did your recovery start? Like, what steps did you take to start to feel better, and what did the feeling better feel like?
So, it's all like a blur after like I recovered. Like, it's trying to like backtrack, but I just noticed like I was not afraid of it anymore. Like when I would be in those moments, I was like more like not scared of it at this point. It was more just like, oh, this is so annoying. Like that's kind of like how I felt. I don't know if any of you felt that, but it's more like I wasn't scared of it at that time, but it was still like kind of there, not as intense. But I noticed like every day slowly, like not constantly like thinking about it when I woke up, because as you know, like when you wake up and it's not there and then you're like, oh, it's not there, and then it comes back. Like I noticed like myself not doing that and like sending me into a spiral, DP spiral, I don't know. But every day I would wake up, I could talk to people at work, and that was like the best thing. I feel like I was a lot happier, like finally like not secluding myself from like family. Like I wasn't secluding myself, but I don't know, I was more like open to talk, and it wasn't scary to talk to my family anymore and like people I work with. And I just like forgot about it at certain moments. Like obviously when you're recovering, it's still gonna like come back, and it's how you like deal with it in those moments. Like during my recovery, I had like tons of like good days, but I know recovering from anything, you're always gonna have like those bad days, and it's how you handle those bad days. So I just took it with like a grain of, like I wasn't scared. I was just like, I'm just gonna accept it. And that's what I did in those moments. I just accepted the feeling, and I was like, it's here, and I'm just gonna continue going on. And what helped me is like just playing, I don't know, but the whole time I had this depersonalization, I finished the whole Lego Harry Potter game on my Switch, and that really helped me just to distract myself. I recommend it. It's a fun game, but that's what I did in my recovery. And also another big thing, I did take like vitamins. So during that process, once I knew that I wanted to really get better and not be stuck in this rut, I looked into like different vitamins that could help and supplements. So I took like ashwagandha and then just like vitamin D, like basic, and then a multivitamin. And that like really helped as well, just to like it kind of gave me a routine every morning. Like that also helped, like having a steady routine. Like I knew what I had to do when I woke up and like just kept myself in the same routine. That helped as well. So like I did that, and I don't know, it just got slowly better, and I would notice like it's gone. That's kind of just like how it went. I was just like, oh my God. And then looking back on it, I was just like, wow, that was an experience. Like like as messed up as it is, like I told my therapist, but I was like, I'm kind of glad that it happened to me. Like as shitty as it was, sorry, I swore. But
That's okay.
as messed up as it was, like I'm glad that it happened to me, because I feel like it made me like, this is cheesy, but it made me like stronger in a way. Like I knew that if I got through this, like this was like the worst experience of my life, but I knew that I got through it, that I could get through anything. So just like staying motivated, that's what really just helped, and not dwelling on that feeling and being scared of it, because that's like the worst thing, is being afraid of it, because then it just spikes up your anxiety even worse.
It's really interesting what you say about the it feeling annoying. That's a really it's a really, really positive sign on the way to recovery, is when it kind of it's like when it starts, these feelings are absolutely terrifying, and they're so frightening. And then it's like once you understand why they're there, and you understand that there's a simple logical reason for every one of these symptoms, and you can start to let them go, then they kind of go from being absolutely terrifying to just being a pain, just kind of going like, oh, I'm so sick of this, like, and also like, for me, I remember a big part of it, I think this is something you referred to as well, Mackenzie, was like getting up in the morning, and the first thing I would do in the morning was I check to see if the feeling was there, and if the feeling was there, I'd be freaked out and I'd be disappointed, and I think, how am I going to get through the day? And I'd lie in bed and I'd just be like, oh God, sure, another 24 hours of this nonsense, like, Whereas when I was starting to recover, I wake up in the morning and I noticed that the feeling was there, but I would just immediately get up and I'd immediately go for a shower, take a jog, go for a jog, eat breakfast, like do whatever, but move. Okay, it's there, but I'm on the move, like, I have stuff to do. And when you do that, then the feeling goes from being like absolutely terrifying to just whatever, like, that annoying thing, like, it's like like it's literally like just having a song stuck in your head, just like, okay, that thing's there, but I have other songs to listen to, I have other stuff to do, like, it's great that you mentioned about the Lego Harry Potter thing as well. So I know it's something I mentioned in my in the book, but like when I was recovering, I used to carry around a Nintendo DS with me. This was back in 2006, 2007. And I literally used to just like, if I had 10 minutes to wait at a bus stop, instead of like sitting there doing nothing, I take out the Nintendo and I just start playing Mario Brothers or Mario Kart or something.
Yeah.
And just constantly taking my attention over and over and over. I mean, now most people just have games loaded on their phones, but like it's mad that like it's just something as simple as a video game can be a great tool for focusing your attention away from like, a big massive scary thought about the nature of reality. But I'm on level 6 of the Lego Harry Potter, so I've got better things to do, like, I'm playing this great game on my Switch, like, and absolutely the thing about becoming stronger as well, it does. I mean, for me, Mackenzie, I definitely had a sense of like when I recovered. First of all, my recovery was like, it was just completely back to normal. You were just completely back to normal.
Yeah.
But I remember having a sense of like a heightened sense of empathy for people who were going through kind of like depression or anxiety or things like that.
Yeah.
Because I think in the past I probably felt that like, well, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, like just, you know, push through it, or you know, there's ways and means. But when I went through it myself, and especially kind of going through it yourself and realizing that like it doesn't seem like, it felt like it's happening for no reason, or like this is happening because I took a couple of drags of a joint, like, you know, and
Yeah.
how unfair it was. So when I recovered, I remember having a strong sense of empathy for people going through this, because of just how random it can be, and just how like
Yeah.
unexplained and unexpected it can feel. But definitely a sense of being stronger for it as well, and that like it's great to have this experience under your belt at a young age,
Hmm.
because now it's out of the way. Now I understand
Hmm.
what anxiety is, and I understand that the reason it turned into an ongoing thing was because I misinterpreted normal, natural symptoms of anxiety. But I have that
Hmm.
now. I have that experience now, and that'll benefit me in future, and it won't happen again. You know.
Yeah.
So so getting back to normal, Mackenzie, is it actually, I asked this when I talked to everyone, is getting back to normal really just getting back to normal?
I would say yes, like not having like I would say like the main thing is not having to worry about these crazy like things that you shouldn't be worrying about. Like I didn't want to like worry about like you said, if the sky is real, like just those crazy like if my mom's real, like really like looking back, I'm like seriously, like what was I, it's just like once you recover, it's gonna be like, what was I thinking, like worrying about? Like, so it definitely does go back to normal. And one thing that I kept to myself was like, just for now, like, I don't know, still haven't smoked since like I have like, and I noticed like going back, sorry, I'm going back, but when I was going through it, like I still was like trying to like smoke, and I realized one day I was like, I'm not gonna like, I need to prioritize myself, and like I know this is just not for me, and I'm not gonna be, not even, I wasn't peer pressured, but like just like the thought like, oh, I just want to do it, everyone else doesn't have this feeling, like maybe I'm just like, this will help, and that just, it didn't help at all. It just progressively just kept this state there. So after like now getting back to normal, I kept that to myself like, it's, weed is just not for me. And so I stopped smoking, and that's when I stopped like smoking during going through it as well. Like that's when I noticed the big difference. You would think after having a huge panic attack from weed, you wouldn't do it again during depersonalization, but I was a little stupid, but not really. But um, I just, everything does go back to normal, going back to what you said, going back to normal is like, but definitely does. And I'm glad that I can talk to people now and have those normal, like human connections again, and not being afraid, just like finding comfort in alone time and not being afraid of being alone. Cause before I always, the personalization, I liked my alone time and self care and doing stuff for myself. So when I was going through it, it was really hard to like be alone because it's scary, like being alone. And so I'm not dependent on anybody, like any people anymore, like, because that's something I did struggle with a lot, was that feeling of constantly being with someone because I was scared of being alone. But like during my recovery, I was like, you just have to like face those fears that you go through while you're having those crazy thoughts of like, I don't know, whatever. And you just have to like face those uncomfortable feelings. Like that's what I had to do, is like put myself into those uncomfortable situations that really weren't that uncomfortable. Being alone is not supposed to be scary. I mean, if you're at home in your room and you could just watch some TV, it shouldn't be scary. So I was like, you know, I'm not just going to do it and not be scared. And now I enjoy my alone time. I play Lego Harry Potter still, like just enjoying my like free time. And alone time is like one main thing that I'm finally glad getting back to normal. I can enjoy being alone because I was scared of being alone. I'm not sure if you dealt with that, but that was one major thing that I had to get through. And I'm glad getting back to normal, I can again enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear. Great to hear this. normal is actually back to normal.
Yeah.
It was for me too. And I had the same thing of like, once I recovered, I looked back at those experiences and I was like, Sean, what were you worried about? Like, what?
Yeah.
What, you were afraid of walking outside because the sky was a bit like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
at the time, it
Literally, yeah.
felt very real, Yeah. Yeah. So what's your day-to-day life like, Mackenzie? So you're back to work, you're still at the car
Yeah.
dealership, you're talking to people all the time.
Yeah. I'm enjoying like just this feeling of just like, I don't know, just like feeling like free from this and like like just back to normal life, like driving around, not panicking in a little Mini Cooper, but like just driving around, going to all these cool places. Like I travel like 2 hours, like up to Maine, so it's like cool. I have a cool job, and I want to like. I'm glad I'm enjoying it again because before this I would loved going up to Maine, but going through like the DP, I was like, I hated driving far, but I always loved driving before. So I'm glad now I can enjoy driving to these cool places and talking to people again at work and just like going day to day, like back to normal. Like, I don't know.
Mackenzie, how was the DP manual helpful in your recovery?
Um, that was like, once I got that is when I started to use that in my recovery. So my stepmom got it for me because she actually had it depersonalization too. And I told her about you and she was like, oh, I watched his videos, and I told her like, oh yeah, I know your DP manual. So she gave me that and it really helped. She got it for me. And I listen to the pep talk before work every day. Like the pep talk really helped me. Just like my boyfriend lives like an hour away from me, and when I stay at when I used to stay at his house and driving back in the morning, like I would put that on, and on my work, that really really helped motivate me every day to not be like in that negative mindset and like dwelling upon it. It just really like pushed me and been like, okay, I'm gonna get through this. Like that's one of the things that really helped me. And just like the whole audiobook, I had the audio book version. I don't know. That really helped me, and just listening to that. I remember just like one day just putting it on and just drawing and just like listening to you. Just I don't know, just really that it just really helped my recovery, and I love the DP manual. It did really really help.
So there'll be people watching this interview who are on the channel who may be suffering from DPDR, who are kind of in the same place that that you were and I were when this first started.
Yeah.
So if you're speaking to those people, what advice would you have for somebody who is currently going through depersonalization, derealization?
I know what it feels like to. I was once that person that was watching your videos and like in the deepest, like darkest moments of depersonalization. And I don't know, once you get through it, it's like empowering. And I feel like really good to just be able to like share my story and help other people, because these videos, like your videos really helped me. And I hope that I could give some advice and just say that it does get better. I didn't think it was going to get better, and I was stuck in that like, oh, this is going to suck forever, but it does get better. It's just the matter of putting in the work, I would say, and just staying and remaining positive, as cheesy as that is. Even though some days aren't going to be like positive and butterflies and everything's not going to be okay, but it's just like pushing through those days and staying strong, I would say, is what's going to help you. And things will go back to normal, I promise, because I was that same person that when I heard that, I was like, I don't believe that. But it all starts with like a mindset change. Like you have to change your mindset going through this, I would say, because I don't know, that's what I did. And I just kept that, stayed motivated. And that's what really helped me. And I hope people know that it does get better, and it will get better.
Mackenzie, it's been so lovely speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time, for joining us on the channel. I know that there's be a lot of people who will watch this who find it very informative and inspirational. So yeah, it's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.